как мы уже ведем нашу школу, онлайн, феминист-школу. Сегодня я хочу представить вам нашу коллегу из Армении, Arpy Manusyan. Она исследователь, директор НПО Socioscope, имеет опыт, и она эксперт по гражданскому обществу, по гендеру, сексуальности и теории литературы. Ее презентация очень интересная для всех нас, так как это антигендерная кампания после революционной Армении, цели и риторика. Попрошу вас начать вашу презентацию. И еще, если у вас, мы можем договориться так, вопросы можем задавать во время, during the session, или же мы все наши вопросы после сессии зададим нашей коллеге Arpy. Пожалуйста.
Thank you.
It's flow for you now.
I will now share my screen for the presentation. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present our research, which is entitled Anti-Gender Campaigns, Rhetorics and Objectives in Post-Revolutionary Armenia. We did our research, we have finalized our research in May, and a lot has changed since then. As you know, also we have now very tense political situation in Armenia because of the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia over Nagorno-Karabakh. So a lot has changed also for progressive civil society in Armenia, and especially those who are working on gender issues, LGBT rights, and sexuality. So today I will present our research objective, our research questions, which guided our research methodology. I will present the overall background and local trends of anti-gender campaigns. I will touch upon the political directions and political agendas that these anti-gender campaigns and groups have in post-revolutionary Armenia. What kind of messages they present to the society. I will shortly touch upon the recent transformation of political landscape in Armenia, and once again the attacks on progressive civil society, and some recommendations how we can combat these anti-gender narratives and campaigns overall. So when we started, when we were thinking about our research, we developed our research objective to aiming to collect and to analyze the post-revolutionary rhetoric, including homophobic ones, related to sexual and gender issues, and discursive means, targeting women human rights defenders, activists working on women's and LGBT issues, and progressive civil society, which aim to shrink their space of actions and turn these topics, the topics of gender equality and sexuality, into a weapon to be utilized against the post-revolutionary government, and also to impede possible political reforms, legal reforms in this area. We as researchers, as a research team, consider the issues of sexuality, gender equality, and LGBT rights as very easily manipulated when it comes to power dynamics. And we link these topics with the global decline of liberal democracy, with the rise of right-wing populist rhetoric, homophobic discourses in Western and Eastern Europe, and also with the rise of conspiracy theories into various regions of the world. And we also link these issues with the challenges of human rights protection in Armenia, the overall socio-political context of the country. Given the objective of the research, we have had these several research questions, which we posed and tried to find answers to them. What discursive means and ideological boundaries are underlying the local and international anti-gender campaigns? What political interests and agendas hold these people and groups who are backing the local anti-gender campaigns? What are their main messages and ideas about sexuality and gender issues? How they circulate these messages? How those who are engaged in these anti-gender campaigns are linking the public discussions of sexuality and gender issues to the Velvet Revolution that happened in Armenia in 2018, and how the post-revolutionary government or power reacts to these anti-gender campaigns. What types of messages and ideas do they circulate? And how overall these anti-gender campaigns impact the progressive rights defending civil society and legal reforms in Armenia. I would like also to mention that we as researchers and our colleagues from Women Fund Armenia, who financially assisted our research initiative, we perceive these topics as very political ones. And we as researchers and our colleagues from Women Fund Armenia have periodically with various intensities faced attacks from these same anti-gender groups and campaigns. So this research also is a kind of reflection on our work and how we as a part of civil society should deal with these anti-gender discourses. Shortly about the methodology of the research, we did a secondary analysis of already published local and international studies around the topics. We have mapped and identified around 30 cases that happened in post-revolutionary Armenia that targeted women human rights defenders, activists dealing with gender equality, and which highlighted manipulations related to sexuality and gender issues. But we chose, we did this mapping via monitoring of social media, social networks, etc. But we have chosen 10 cases which were more tense, discursively more dense and typical cases. And again, they targeted women human rights defenders and activists both physically and discursively, and manipulated the topics of gender and sexuality. These were cases such as attacking LGBT persons gathering in one of the southern villages in Armenia, attacking book presentation on sexuality, attacking transgender human rights defender in after her speech in parliament, campaign targeting women journalist who was raising the issue of domestic violence, and etc. What we found out during our research was that we are currently witnessing a sharp rise of anti-rights, anti-gender campaigns and political expansion of homophobic and misogynistic rhetoric in numerous regions of the world, in USA, in Russia, in Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and in many post-Soviet countries, including Armenia. This rhetoric highlights that gender equality is a kind of ideology that has been developed by some forces to shatter the foundation of traditional family, traditional values, and to propagate homosexuality. These are this is the main narrative of these anti-gender campaigns, but of course these anti-gender campaigns have a deeper political struggle and political problems. The issue, as we think, is related more to the crisis of liberal democracy and to the rise of this right-wing populist rhetoric in many countries, which consolidate these conservative homophobic groups against this gender agenda. The anti-gender campaigns unite in Armenia and in many countries center forces of center-right, far-right political parties, religious servants in various countries. Catholic and Orthodox churches are the most active initiators of these anti-gender campaigns, conservative initiatives and organizations, and various big and small political groups who have their political interest in propagating these anti-gender narratives. But several researchers confirmed that the rise of anti-rights, anti-gender campaigns in Armenia have began to be more dense starting from 2013 in the scope of geopolitical preferences of Armenia, when there was a choice between Russia's customs union and European Union's association agreement with the European Union. So in this year, in 2013, we have been witnessing these emerging parental committees in many post-Soviet countries, which were propagating these Kremlin agendas, anti-gender agendas, and they were aiming to maintain and develop the influence of Russian Federation in the post-Soviet countries. In this year, for example, in Armenia, the police published the draft amendments of the Administrative Offences Code of Armenia, suggesting to add 2 articles stipulating responsibility for the propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations. And this political course, or this legal reform, was aiming to protect the model of traditional Armenian family against the phenomena of alien to national Armenian mentality. Later, the head of police called back this legal draft, but this episode was an internal political emanation of geopolitical developments taking place in the region. Within the same year, as I've already mentioned, several parental committees emerged in various post-Soviet countries, and their discourses and narratives have been the same. For example, for like a strange coincidence, the press conferences and statements of all Armenian Parental Committee followed the activities of Russian-based equivalent one. These parental committees declared the need to unite against the gender attack to preserve the family and traditional values. They started campaign against the law on gender equality, and they created this kind of external enemy, which was this gender equality, and to preserve the traditional Armenian family. And within this period of time, also we're witnessing many Russian-backed NGOs who were backed up by then former political regime of Armenia. And starting from this time, the discourse of anti-George Soros discourse have emerged also in Armenia and in various post-Soviet countries, in various Eastern European countries. And George Soros has been, since then, has been portrayed as an enemy to Armenia. And after the revolution, these narratives and the escalation of campaigns against Open Society Foundation's Armenia have been escalated, and this narrative has been used as a weapon to target not only progressive civil society or those who have somehow worked with this foundation, but also they have been targeted, they have been using this discourse to target those politicians from the revolutionary government who have been activists, who have been working with Open Society Foundations, and these anti-gender groups have been labeling them as Soros agents, Soros pocket politicians, pocket ministers, and parliamentaries of Soros, who have orchestrated the revolution, who are going to destroy Armenia, destroy Armenian national values, traditional family, etc. So after the revolution, these anti-gender campaigns have become a kind of opposition to the new government, and has become an easily manipulated topic to manipulate the public opinion on gender issues and sexuality. And these anti-gender groups are mobilized around the second and third presidents of Armenia and their like-minded circles and oligarchs. They are using their media resources to manipulate public opinion. And because we do not have adequate legal and political judgment by post-revolutionary government of Armenia, and also by police, these groups are succeeding to multiply their resources, including in the media, and act under a more complex internal political landscape. These groups have their political agendas and political directions, and they target activists and rights defenders of women and LGBT persons, progressive civil society, artists. And one of their main objectives is to devalue their actions and devalue the concept of human rights and equity. They aim to shrink the space of progressive and rights protection figures, and also to impede the progressive legal reforms in the country, such as the ratification of Istanbul Convention, for example. And to also rise the homophobic sentiments in society. They want also to halt the democratization of Armenia and to impede much awaited rights-based possible legal reforms in this regard. They target state figures through their elect or real ties with rights defenders and civil society. They want to discredit their activities, and also they want to discredit the activities of progressive civil society. They create the preconditions so that state figures who were somehow collaborating with progressive civil society are afraid of their ties, are afraid of speaking and protecting progressive civil society representatives who are under attack. So this is a kind of, they are creating a very bubble of silence where we do not have adequate political condemnation, we do not have adequate legal mechanism to combat these anti-gender narratives. And they seed doubts in relation to the fact of the revolution being done by the people of Armenia, and they are creating and developing these conspiracy theories that Armenian Velvet Revolution was orchestrated by George Soros, by external forces, and therefore he is the new enemy for Armenia. And they also want, with their actions, they also want to create resistance against European or more largely general Western legal, political, and cultural field in a broader context. And they are propagating this subordinate relationship with Kremlin and with Russia, and highlight the Russia's role for Armenia. And what is interesting is that they are using the democratic mechanisms and conditions, particularly the those of free assembly and free speech, against the same democracy that ensures those public freedoms. So they are also using some concrete messages to manipulate the public opinion in Armenia. They are playing very well with this concept of tradition or traditional values, and they portray tradition and traditional values as a monolithic and unchangeable, genuine, some kind of structure that can't be changed. And they are denying with this the real stories that show that we have this diversity of traditions in Armenian culture, also in regard with sexuality, sexual behavior, and gender identities. But they are trying to deny this and portray us and our traditions as a monolithic structure that is being attacked by this progressive civil society, by these Western agents, and etc. They are playing also with Armenian ethnic identity, Christian identity. They are using these topics of national and state security. And also they were playing very well with this militaristic discourse of unfinished war before the war started in September. Now they are much more active after the war. And they are putting in contradiction the rights of minorities with the rights of others. So what they are telling is that if LGBT persons' rights, for example, are protected, that means that other part of society, that the majority, the life of the majority or the rights of the majority will be oppressed. And this is this can this easily manipulates the public opinion. They portray Armenia as a country which is very close, which is divided from the rest of the world, especially from the Western world. And we are here and we have this Western world which is foreign to us, alien to us, and they want to impose their agenda of gender equality, of propagating sexuality on us. They are discrediting people's demands for dignity and equality, and they are discrediting people's struggle for human rights and democratization. And they are creating both virtually and also sometimes in physically in public spaces, a situation where non-heteronormative sexual orientation or gender identity is not tolerable. So the violence against these people is legitimate for them. And they are using the same conspiracy theories as those which have been used in Eastern Europe, in other post-Soviet countries, that building this image of external enemy, and this external enemy can be West, Europe, George Soros, etc. And there is external enemies, and we have these internal enemies, which are women rights defenders, LGBT activists, or progressive civil society as a whole. And they are interconnected, and they are anti-state forces, agents, who are trying to devalue our national uniqueness, let's say. So they are using these kind of narratives and messages to target these people, to manipulate public opinion, and also to consolidate the public, or at least some groups or layers in Armenian society around this fake agenda. I would also like to touch upon, as I've already said, that we did our research finalized our research in May. A lot has been changed. We have gone through a horrible 44 days of war since September 27 with Azerbaijan. Afterwards, we have, after this horrible war, we have this signed statement of ceasefire on November 9 with Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russian Federation. Now we have Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh, which means also Russian presence in Armenian political, social, cultural landscape. And we should also face and analyze what does this mean for us as a society in a whole and as a civil society. We are facing also humanitarian crisis in Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. We have rallies each day demanding the resignation of the PM Nikol Pashinyan, and these rallies are orchestrated by the representatives of previous government regimes. They are continuing to use this Sorosist discourse to portray Nikol Pashinyan as a person who have sold the lands in Nagorno-Karabakh, who is Sorosist, and that's why we have lost the territories. And we also have this objective public distrust towards the government, and we have now social polarization in the society. We are speaking about the need for snap elections, and overall we are currently facing socioeconomic and political crisis in Armenia, which also means that civil society, especially progressive civil society, those working with sensitive issues, those working on LGBT issues, sexuality, gender equality, are also in crisis, because now more than ever, these are topics which on which it is very hard to talk. We should also rethink and understand how this situation, how this Russian presence in Armenia will eventually affect the civil society, because as I've spoken during my presentation, all these anti-gender campaigns and anti-gender narratives are somehow connected with Kremlin circles. So now we should also face that these circles will be more than active. Those working on these sensitive issues will be under attack, both virtually and physically, because after this ceasefire agreement, on the same day, we have witnessed physical attack on the office of Open Society Foundation in Armenia. There was physical attack on the office of Radio Liberty in Armenia. We are witnessing hate speech and call for violence against Soros-backed progressive civil society representatives, academics, researchers who have worked on not only on gender issues or sexuality, but also who were working in peace-building projects, who are talking about reconciliation and etc. Now we are also witnessing these same groups who are the locomotive of these anti-gender narratives. They are also rising this militaristic discourse, which also aim to shrink the space of progressive civil society, to marginalize the progressive civil society. What we need now in Armenia is to rethink the current political landscape in the country, to reflect on newly emerged challenges, and to find new tools and to ways to speak up gender issues. Because, for example, we and our colleagues from Women Fund Armenia were thinking, and our colleagues from other countries like Ukraine and Georgia, we were in a project where we tried to develop a campaign against these anti-gender discourses, anti-gender campaigns, but the war erupted, and we have postponed our participation in that project, because currently all political discourses are because now objectively, and also gender issues and gender topics are not on the top of the agenda in our social political life, and we need to rethink how and when we can speak on these issues, how and when we can combat these groups, because these are the same groups who were attacking women rights defenders, LGBT rights defenders, starting from 2013. They became very consolidated after the revolution, and now after the war they are more than consolidated. So their narrative is still there, and we as academics, as researchers and civil society in Armenia need to face not only this economic, social crisis in Armenia, humanitarian crisis, but also these attacks on civil society. We need systematic application of legal mechanisms to punish these groups. So we need these legal reforms, which I doubt that we'll have in near future. These reforms should be fundamental, and law enforcement systems should integrate gender sensitivity among the professionals. And the complex legal reforms are very much needed currently that will uproot the discrimination, hate speech, and violence against any kind of non-normative discourse in Armenia, but especially hate speech and violence against progressive civil society in the country. Thank you very much for I will try to currently I want to stop sharing the screen, but
мы попросим наших хост нам сказать, как мы можем это закрыть.
Как бы у меня не было. Окей, я нашла stop share.
Хорошо. Большое спасибо, Арпи, за очень интересный доклад. У меня такое чувство, что она иногда какие-то вопросы рассказывала о Грузии, потому что наши эти проблемы все схожи. И я попрошу, если у слушателей, у наших коллег есть вопросы, чтобы они нам задали Арпи, и она с удовольствием вам ответит на все вопросы. Пожалуйста, вопросы.
Если можно, задам тогда, если...
Пожалуйста.
Нет. Спасибо большое, Арпи. Я, конечно, знакома с отчетом, с исследованием. Действительно, одно из самых лучших на сегодняшний день исследований в Армении по этой теме, которое мы имеем. И в этом вот контексте на сегодняшний день то, что произошло и происходит в Армении, Арпи уже какой-то анализ дала нам о том, чего можно ожидать, но мне бы хотелось больше услышать, если можно, каких-то, может быть, рекомендаций для гражданского общества, может быть, какой-то больше вот такой анализ, как себя вести в этой ситуации, и если какой-то, joint, да, так сказать, ответ может быть от civil society, если это, конечно, потому что есть разные платформы, в которых мы участвуем, пытаемся что-то делать, но вроде бы пока что не очень эффективно и немножко такое парализованное состояние, в том числе и у гражданского общества, что, наверное, нормально. Но хотелось бы услышать, может быть, не знаю, рекомендации, может, это пока очень так звучит амбициозно, во всяком случае, какой-то анализ того, куда мы двигаемся как гражданское общество и какие поведенческие, скажем так, паттерны можно сейчас предпринять. Спасибо большое.
Спасибо за вопрос. Если я, наверное, отвечу на английском, мне будет так гораздо легче. You're raising very important question, I think, because when I was preparing this presentation, I was also thinking about how can we as a civil society react on these anti-gender campaigns now, as we are in a more critical situation than we were when we were doing this research. What we need, first of all, I think, is to meet each other, to have discussions within Armenian civil society, because I feel that many of us need to talk to each other, to analyze the situation. Maybe this can be the first step of reflection, like gatherings, something like focus group discussions, to understand where we are and where are we going. I think that we are currently in very bad place. I'm in civil society because we are very much marginalized, not only by these anti-gender campaigns, anti-gender groups, but also by the post-revolutionary government. Because, as you know, Gohar, were speaking about these issues a lot after the revolution with MPs, with various politicians, and they didn't respond to these issues seriously. They didn't admit that these groups are really dangerous for the further democratization of Armenia. And now I think that we as a civil society also have distrust towards the government, and this apathy because we don't know where are we going as a country and as a civil society. I don't have concrete recommendations, but I think that first of all we need to get together with like-minded people who are working in this area to develop our own strategy to deal with this situation, because I think we can't always be our struggle can't always be reactionary. We need to have our strategy. So maybe the first step would be this, to get together, to speak with each other, to understand how various groups in civil society imagine the situation, and what are the perspectives. Because I think we as a civil society are very much polarized now, more than ever. So I don't have much hope that we can overcome these challenges easily.
Thank you, Arpy.
Thank you.
Вопросы?
There is someone wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dear
Yeah.
Arpy.
Many thanks. How do you see possible support from Georgian colleagues? Thank you too for your question. Actually, now it's very hard to understand how our Georgian colleagues can help us in this situation. As I think that first of all, we need as a civil society to get together internally to understand what was this war, how it affected us as a civil society, as a country as a whole. And maybe afterwards, when this critical situation, when we overcome this crisis, I don't know when and how, but hopefully when someday we will overcome, maybe we can have discussions with our colleagues from Georgia and maybe Ukraine and other countries who have gone through revolution and war also, and maybe they can have some advices, but currently I'm not sure that at this point the support besides this collegial support or support when we feel that we have friends in Georgia, friends in other post-Soviet countries that take care of us, because during the war it was also very sad and depressive for us, and we were very much frustrated because we didn't get this understanding from our colleagues or much support from our colleagues. So if you as our Georgian colleagues can support us even by, I don't know, asking how do we feel, that would be very much supportive.
Can I intervene?
Yeah.
I also think that as an outcome of our common work and in our final document and final strategy, common strategy, which will be as elaborated as a result of the project, we should have on each country specific targets, as well as we should think about system of mutual support and united action when it is necessary and possible, and on what topics we can be clearly together, also identify these topics, because we have our limitations. You can see it. Political limitations, limitations in positioning ourselves, and etc. So there should be identified common topics where our voice would be, and it will help us together effort during the specificities of working within our countries. But it will be, I think that it will be important result of the project that we will elaborate this type of strategy and put it as a base for future cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to have a small remark also regarding to what you said and your colleague of previous question on what Georgian colleagues can do. I think that you have raised an important aspect that we can, we as colleagues, as civil society working in various countries, but who face much more or less the same issues, we can show that that we are not unique, that these anti-gender campaigns, they have more or less the same background. They have the same agendas and political directions in each and every country. In USA, in Russia, in Western and Eastern European countries, and especially in post-Soviet countries. We can have this joint campaign or joint statement or joint positioning that these groups are, as Katia also mentioned, that it resonated, you're right, that our research findings resonated also with the situation of Georgia, because they are playing with the same sentiments, these traditional values, nationalistic family, etc. So maybe our work or joint activity can first of all understand that we have the same enemy, let's say. I don't like that word, but in this case I may use it. And they are these anti-gender groups and anti-gender campaigns who are trying to target us, to shrink our space of independent action, who are using the same manipulative language everywhere in each and every country. And this maybe can be beneficial for everyone, because they are manipulating with public opinion everywhere using the same language.
Есть ли еще вопросы? Что-то не видно вопросов. Или? И я хочу тоже одно предложение сказать. Я не хочу повторяться, потому что и Гохар, и Лика, и вы все подчеркиваем, что обязательно нужно вместе сражаться, в принципе, с этой идеологией и с антигендерной кампанией. И, как Лика сказала, outcome этой школы и нашего проекта должен быть документ, чтобы региональное, так сказать, сотрудничество, региональная cooperation против антигендерной кампании. Я хочу сказать большое спасибо, если нет вопросов и если нет никаких ремарк для Arpy, и окончить эту сессию.
I would also like to thank everyone for the questions, and thank you very much.
Спасибо еще раз вам. И мы встречаемся 2:30. У нас второе будет читать наша коллега Юлия Харашвили, и я вас приглашаю прослушать ее.